I'm going to begin this with a few outlining facts. First, the United States is the #1 country in the world for incarceration rates. Secondly, it is estimated that 1 in 9 men in their lifetime will go to prison. More specifically, 1 in 17 white men, 1 in 3 black men, and 1 in 6 Latino men. So who sticks up for the people that are facing higher incarceration rates seemingly based on their race? This is where organizations and movements like the Sentencing Project come in. The Sentencing Project does what it can to work towards a fair and effective criminal justice system, standing behind this mission statement. Founded in 1986, the Sentencing Project works for a fair and effective U.S. criminal justice system by promoting reforms in sentencing policy, addressing unjust racial disparities in practices, and advocating for alternatives to incarceration. The issue at hand is general rights violations within the criminal justice system. However, I found myself coming up with a lot of information about racial disparities within the criminal justice systems. While I found a lot of information about profiling and tactics such as stop and frisk, which seem to target those of African American or Latino descent, I also found a lot of information on prisons, more specifically about how there are, consistently across the United States, more blacks and Latinos in prison than whites. So what does the Sentencing Project do to try and help that problem? For starters, and I think most importantly, they offer contact information for local teams all across the United States in order for ordinary people like you and me to get involved. What this shows me is that the efforts being made by the Sentencing Project can make changes at home for people. The best way to fix a large-scale problem is to start small. Another thing they do is provide quick links for any web user to join an effort to pass reform through Congress. Most recent example of this is the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, which is reform to the current JJPDA that makes it so juveniles have more opportunity to get on the right track. Above all, the justice system is in place to get people out rather than keep them in. And of course, as a nonprofit, people can get involved through donations to be used by the Sentencing Project deemed as they see fit. In 2015, with regards to racial disparity in the criminal justice system, the Sentencing Project released Black Lives Matter, Eliminating Racial Inequity in the Criminal Justice System, a report which led to presentations of the U.S. courts and brought in media coverage from around the world. And that is just one report on one topic. Members from the Sentencing Project made appearances on National Public Radio denouncing the use of solitary confinement, another rights violation within prisons in the United States. In 2016, they plan to take even more steps towards finding a way to bring effectiveness to the criminal justice system. They plan to continue to research and advocate for prisons that are free of racial disparities. In their report, The Color of Justice, Racial and Ethnic Disparities in State Prison, they found that the national average ratio of black to white men in prison is 5:1. The average ratio of Hispanic or Latino to white is 1.4:1. Author of the report, Ashley Nellis, noted that an unwarranted level of incarceration that worsens racial disparities is problematic not only for the impacted group, but for society as a whole. So what makes the Sentencing Project worthy of my time or anyone's time or money? Well, for one, it's an organization that is working in the now for the now. These disparities, racial or otherwise, within the criminal justice system are more detrimental to the health of our nation than we may think. As Nellis, the author of the report, said earlier, these discrepancies are taking a toll on the perceptions of justice in our nation, and perception can be worth more than we think. It can lead to unfavorable race relations outside of prison or the criminal justice system in general, and overall distrust in the system, which can lead to chaos. The Sentencing Project is doing its part. It's raising awareness for these problems that people may not be paying attention to. I looked at many nonprofit organizations that took aim at injustice within the criminal justice, but none of them seemed to be quite as put together as the Sentencing Project. I feel confident in my support for the Sentencing Project and even more confident in the work that they are doing.